Okay. Hi, everyone. So my name is Yara Fernandez. I'm a director for an international space mission. It's a partner with the Indian Space Agency in India. So Shadab and I have known each other for quite a few years now. He's the co-founder of Quantum Computing India. So I'm so delighted to be co-speaking with him. Mainly, he will be speaking a lot on the topic because I am who I am today, thanks to him being my teacher. So basically, as a director for an international space mission, we help over 100 countries. We are promoting global collaboration and world peace, that we can all work together as a human race. So what we do is we give, it's with a company called Space Kids India. Kids has a Z at the end, so Space Kids India. And we give education to a lot of girls in many different countries, in more than one continent, especially countries that don't have like a space program yet. And then part of our curriculum also includes the very basics for quantum education. So yeah, I got started into quantum computing thanks to Shadab. He is such a great teacher and he's so talented. Um, and then my other background is that I'm in international group that was founded by Harry Lipinski. So Harry Lipinski, he was a child during the Great Depression. He lived through World War II, and he was also involved in the space race. He was a diplomat, so he even trained the foreign service officers. And what I admire about Harry Lipinski is that he emphasized that in conflict resolution, it's important to think about the culture when you're resolving conflict. So in various capacities and roles, I promote world peace. So yeah, those are some things about me. So I'm really excited to be involved in uh, providing quantum education to students around the world. And it's all thanks to Shadab Hussain. So Shadab, you can introduce yourself now.
Sure, Yara, thanks. Hi everyone. I'm Shadab, and like I work full time as an AI engineer, but quantum has always been close to me since last 5 years. So I'm still a noob. I will say that, like, I'm not an expert, but sharing knowledge with others and whatever is going on in the industry, be it in the post-quantum cryptographic side or towards the algorithmic development or quantum machine learning and AI side. I try to like catch up with the things what people are doing in the industry and research, and with the same motto, just like to share the knowledge with others and bring out people from different backgrounds, research scientists and experts all together. We started Quantum Computing India back in 2019 and tried evangelizing about quantum technology since then. So like we have organized a lot of meetups, webinars, online and offline meetups, and the whole motto has been just to bring people from diverse backgrounds together to work on some of the shared problems or just to share the resources or interact with one another so that we can sort of like evangelize about this tech. So before starting, like I will give a disclaimer that I'm still a noob, I'm not an expert, but we're still trying to like catch up with the things and like work closely with the some of the researchers and scientists to keep up with the pace what is going on in the industry. So without further delay, let's get started. Let me see where my slides are.
Shadab, just to mention, your voice is a little bit on the soft side. Is there anything you can do to increase volume?
Oh yeah, let me put up the. Is it better now?
That's better. Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Cool. So yeah, sorry, this kind of challenges I keep running into. So a bit more about me, like apart from quantum, like I've been into AI industry from last 8 years. I've published a couple of papers, still like some of the papers we have submitted on quantum machine learning and all. Some work I did on consulting side of post-quantum cryptography as well for one of the organization. And I'm like deeply passionate about, or you can say deeply involved in quantum tech, what is happening in US, India, and across the globe. So let's get started. I will share my slides. And yeah, before starting, like if there's any questions in between or if someone is having any doubts, please feel free to pitch in between. so that we can get it clarified then and there. I'm sharing my screen. Let me know if it's visible. I hope it's visible now.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Perfect. So yeah, I think it's visible, right? Cool. So there's been a lot of like knowledge and research group have been working a lot on post-quantum cryptographic side from very long, like whatever has been happening in the industry, and most of the people have been just focused on the like digital side of it, like where whatever existing software systems or other online systems we have, like whatever recommended sort of like NIST approved algorithms we have, people have been trying to move towards that. But like we as human beings, we have been like using a lot of like we're connected with a lot of like embedded devices as well, be it our smart home systems or our devices in the like IoT devices in cars or automotive or at the manufacturing industries. So they have been like advancing computers, quantum computer threats that can break like widely used cryptographic algorithms like RSA or ECC within the next decade, right? So I've already given my introduction, so I will skip this slide. Like I've given a TEDx talk as well and pursuing research side as well, like outside my work. So cryptography has been like immune system of our digital infrastructure, right? So be it the IoT connected devices or our softwares or applications, mobile devices, anything, everything is safe and secure just because of the like cryptographic algorithms we have at the backend to encrypt or decrypt the information and how the data sharing or secure we are able to keep the devices. But with quantum, obviously, there's a huge risk. So that's why like a lot of like research has been going on in different direction. And if we talk about like breaking encryption using the quantum algorithm, so this is like a table which I tried coming up with, like whatever existing classical algorithms we have and what are the key size, like estimated key size. So different variants of these algorithms as well with different key size. But like if we talk about RSA to 2048 bit, then on classical computers, it can take about 1 billion years to like to be cracked. But on the quantum computers, it is expected like 8 hours. I have put the asterisk because you can consider the error mitigated techniques as well, so that we can like overcome those errors from the quantum algorithms. Same for ECC, we have like 256-bit key size. On classical computers, it is like 10 million years, and on quantum, it is like around approximately 10 minutes of time it will take to break. For AES 128 and 256-bit, like it is 10 to the power 38 or 76 years to be broken. And for quantum computers, it is around like 10 to the power 19 or 38 years using the Grover's algorithm. So with this, like we'll start like where currently we are going ahead with. So like this, Dr. Dustin Moody is the NIST PQC lead. And like this is one of the quote I'm like presenting on this slide. Don't wait until it's too late. So a lot of people think that like post-quantum cryptography is coming. We will adapt as per the industry is moving, and then when we'll see the shift, then we'll start adapting or moving towards that change. But it's advisable that we don't wait up to the last minute and follow like how everyone is moving towards the like migration strategy from classical cryptographic algorithms towards the quantum post-quantum cryptographic algorithms. Rather than we follow the trends and standards, what is getting set by the research labs, institutes, and scientists, and whatever algorithm is getting approved, and we come up with hybrid strategies, how the transition should move from classical side to the post-quantum side, right? So IoT devices, why I have picked this particular topic for today's, like we have been seeing a lot of like research group presenting on the like system side of it, but embedded side, there are only few research groups have been like proactively working. So those are from Yale, MIT, and few other research groups I'm aware of. So IoT devices are sort of like a perfect quantum target given the amount of devices we have been connected globally, and almost each one of us, like if we see some or the other devices we are using in our day-to-day life, which are like embedded and connected to the internet directly or indirectly, and they are very easy to be attacked if we don't make sure that those standards, those encryption or security standards are not being sort of met. So one of the Microsoft research report, the stats is 73% of IoT devices are vulnerable, and they're using public key cryptographic algorithms which are vulnerable, right? And average IoT device lifespan is around 7 to 10 years, which is in industrial 15 to 20 years as well. And 82% of organization cannot patch all deployed devices. So once a device has been rolled out to the customers or has been started getting used out there, they're very, you can say we don't have efficient measures to roll out the updates or patches, like so that if there are any security vulnerabilities or something is missing, we can easily patch those updates so that the devices can be secured enough and can be made proofed from any sort of attacks, not just quantum attacks. Like if I talk about normal security updates or software updates as well, on embedded device, it's a bit challenging if the system is not well connected and the patches or vulnerabilities are not have not been taken care of properly. So there are three type of device classes. Like we have class 0, in which we have sensors. We have class 1, in which we have light IoT devices, and we have class 2, which is rich IoT devices. This is the CPU and RAM size. Also, you will see for each of the device class. So sensors will have RAM memory of less than 10 KB and storage size of less than 100 KB. And sensors are connected with live systems so that whatever data is getting captured by these sensors, it can be transferred to the actual databases in real time, where we keep logging in real time those informations and data, right? And for light IoT devices, it's between 10 to 100 KB. Storage size is less than 1 MB. And simultaneously for class 2 rich IoT devices, we have RAM size of uh, more than or greater than 100 KB and storage size of greater than 1 MB. And simultaneously, we have power consumption also by these devices from uh, milliwatt to watt. Sometimes it goes based on how the devices have been designed. So these are some of the updates about what is happening with the IoT, and there are a lot of lightweight RSA encryption or ECC encrypted algorithms which are getting used by billions of devices across the globe. And these devices have very long life cycles at times. So if you don't look at how these risks can be mitigated, whatever we are anticipating with full-fledged quantum computers, or how we can make sure that the IoT systems are also simultaneously getting proofed or secured from the quantum attacks, it will be a huge challenge for the whole, you can say, nations across the world. So that's why we have certain threat timelines and all, which I'm going to discuss next. But before moving there, for those who are not aware of quantum computers, or I mean, I know there are many experts already on the panel, and it's my pleasure to present in front of everyone. But for those who are getting introduced to this session for the first time, and you're not aware of quantum computer, you can understand in a simple layman term that quantum computers are a special type of computing devices which use the principles of quantum physics and mechanics, especially if I mention superposition and entanglement for the computation purpose, which gives them a sort of superpowers to perform some sort of computation in exponential runtime. Right. So as in case of classical computers, we have bits 0, 1. The same way in case of quantum computers, we have qubits, also known as quantum bits. And they are still in development, and all the big companies like be it IBM, DWave, or Google, they all have their own roadmaps, like how many number of qubits they are going to roll out, what year, what achievement they are planning for. And that's how the industry is progressing. So I will not go towards the roadmap size and all, how the quantum computers are advancing, how the error mitigation techniques are moving or are getting advanced than like what has been anticipated earlier. But overall, like this is the picture of the quantum computer, and they are getting developed way exponential faster the way we expected like 2 or 3 years back. So a lot of timelines and roadmaps are getting devised by each of these big tech companies, and this advancement is happening obviously not uh, like just in the quantum industry alone, but with the help of AI combination and all, like how the labs are like sort of like able to advance their research. AI for quantum, quantum for AI. There's a lot of like different type of research groups which are like sort of like complementing one another in advancing these fields. So, what is post-quantum cryptography, right? So, post-quantum cryptographic algorithms are uh, those algorithms which make sure that the systems are secure against attacks from quantum computers. So, these are not the actual algorithms which, I mean, these are not the algorithms which actually run on the quantum computers, but they have been designed in such a way that they are way stronger in terms of like when someone will try to break the system, even with the power of quantum computers, right? So this all started with Shor's algorithm, which was developed in 1994 by scientist from MIT, Peter Shor, and his recommendation was like we can find the prime factors of an integer in an like very short span of time, and whatever time is needed to solve the factoring problem will be reduced, and we will see the effect of it on the existing encryptions, be it RSA, DSA, ECC, or Diffie-Hellman, L-Gamil, etc. There are a lot of like classical encryptions if we go in that direction. So these are just a few like which are commonly used across the industry. So since then, like since we didn't had the full-fledged quantum computers, it was not like proved or people are not able to test out efficiently. But since IBM started with Qiskit and all, we have seen a lot of advancement, and people started sort of like prototyping and designing some algorithms on the simulators first to see like how they're performing, and the whole research is going on in this domain. Another very important algorithm for in this field is Grover's algorithm, which was developed in 1996, and it is for like solving unstructured search problems more efficiently. So this, if you have to understand, you can understand by the analogy, like if you have to search for a book in a library, it can take hours of time if you don't know where the book is exactly placed, right? Or if you don't have like multiple pathway to reach to the exact book aisle where that book has been placed. The Grover's algorithm was like very much efficient in terms of search algorithm, and the combination of both algorithms can be used for like how the existing encryptions can be broken. So with the help of like quantum computer, there's a like all the systems are at risk, and that's why like it is getting recommended by NIST, and there are several others international bodies and organizations or research groups you can say where be it from China, be it from US or European countries or Asian countries, which are coming together. They are collaborating, especially the NIST post-quantum cryptography group. Like if you will go there and check, we have a Google group also for that where research scientists are coming up with new algorithms. They are expert agreement. They are analyzing the future impact, and by when we need to act, there has been a timeline also put up in front by NIST, which we will be talking about later. So how secure will be our like current cryptography be, right? Like, so we have a lot of uh, places where encryptions are getting used. So be it like public key infra, we have SSL or TLS protocol, we have key agreement between different like devices. We have blockchain and cryptocurrencies, which can be hugely impacted by like by the quantum attacks, and also the PGP or GPG encryption as well. So if out of these, like if you talk about like blockchain and cryptocurrencies as well, imagine like we have blockchain and Ethereum handling billions and trillions of like money across the globe, right? And if you see any sort of such attacks in near term, so that can crash the whole blockchain system as well. So it's not just a risk of the system, but also like these systems, how the money value chain has been established, and how those systems can be attacked by the quantum is something of the concern, for which even organizations like Ethereum also have come up with the plan that how what is their strategy to move from classical encryption towards the quantum encryption. So that's why like it's recommended then like adversaries can record sort of like encrypted IoT traffic also now and can decrypt it once they have a quantum computer. So many of the attackers and all like they can start harvesting the data or they have been harvesting the data. We don't even know like how vulnerable our systems are because most of the time like for people working in the cybersecurity field, they know how to keep themselves secure. But for the common people or people who are not coming from that background, it is very difficult to keep themselves up to date or secure. They are much prone to any sort of cyber attacks, phishing attacks. There are different type of attacks as such, right? So they don't know how to keep their information safe and secure, how to keep themselves by taking certain measures so that their even though the information is encrypted, but still if it's going to be like in the hands of cyber attackers and all, it can be huge potential risk for them. So many of the cyber attackers are like harvesting the data now so that like once they have the full-fledged quantum computers, they can decrypt it with relevant algorithms and can use it for whatever purpose they want. So there are a lot of like high-stake systems in the like healthcare industry, industrial control systems, smart grids, and all that. So even though like if we see quantum threats seem to be in future, but preparation must begin immediately so that we can save ourselves from such attacks. So like if I talk about IoT resource challenge, right? So we have different type of platforms. Like these are some of the platforms I've mentioned. There are many more. Like ESP32, STM32, L4, Nordic, Atmega 328P, with their CPU RAM size, flash memory size, how much power they consume, and where they are being getting used, right? So these are some of the common IoT platforms. And if you look at the cryptographic operation cost on class 1 IoT devices, so if RSA 2048 signatures are getting used, then CPU cycles is like 52 million, RAM size is like around 1.5 KB, and energy consumption is like 368 millijoule. So, which is a bit higher end, right? And if we look at ECC or AES encryption-based techniques, then CPU cycle is a bit less. But at the same time, like depending upon like what kind of encryption algorithms or techniques we are using, uh, how strongly the systems are secure, those will also vary a bit. So that's why like we should think of like how we can mitigate those risks. So very first step is like start using the quantum resistant algorithms, implement hybrid algorithm. Like we can't immediately just transition from classical to quantum on the go. There are huge risks with the existing quantum algorithms as well as the research is going on because if many of you would be like already part of PQC community and standard, which is like steered by NIST, but many of you are not still part of it. So, like, if you follow the trend over there and advancement over there, there are a lot of algorithms like which have been recommended and scientists are working on. But out of that, 3 or 4 recent, like I think last of 2024 or early of 2025, 3 algorithms have been recommended, and one more algorithms was approved recently. There have been a working group like where people are talking about these algorithms, how secure they are, and how they can be implemented. So on the similar direction, we can also think of like what kind of strategies we can adapt as an organization so that we have certain hybrid migration strategies from classical to the post-quantum cryptography, and we need to have the strategies in such a way that even if some changes are coming to the PQC side as well, like whatever algorithms have been approved or have been decided later on, like if scientists find that they're still not like there are better versions of that and the existing one, whatever has been approved has certain risk, how we can like migrate from that to the latest one. We need to spread awareness and be prepared for like what kind of attacks we are going to get from the quantum computers and stay up to date with whatever is happening in the PQC industry, in the field of PQC as well. So there have been like mainly 3 types of post-quantum cryptographic algorithms: code-based, hash-based, and lattice-based. In code-based, it is based on like error-correcting codes, and we have like Gopa code, which is a type of ECC, and we have like Michaelis-based crypto systems also, like which uses Gopa code. Hash-based algorithms are like signature schemes, and we have Merkle signature scheme. They can be stateful and stateless both. And some of the examples are like LMS, XMSS, and Sphinx Plus. And we have lattice-based algorithms, which are like which needs low computation requirement and they're smaller in size, but they relies on like mathematical structure of lattices. So we have sort of like isogeny-based, multivariate-based, and MPC in the head-based PQC algorithm as well. So if we compare based on the like hardware, like on what hardware, like which type of algorithms can go ahead, right? So Kyber, if we talk about, then parameter size for that is like 512. And on the sort of like key generation and encapsulation and decapsulation, how much time it takes. So these are certain stats which we have taken from like different sources, like when the performance was analyzed across different IoT platforms. So these are different IoT devices, ESP32, ARM M4, and ARM MO+. And these were some of the stats which we found after the performance. And these cycles are in millions, by the way. Simultaneously, like if we talk about PQC on IoT hardware, like how these are some of the benchmarks here. So for Kyber, the parameter was 512, like what we have seen in the previous slide here, right? So memory requirement, if you go ahead with, so the code size, like it needed 16.2 KB on Kyber. For Dilithium, it needed 19.4 KB, and for Sphinx Plus, it needed 15.8 KB. And stack memory requirement was like around 3.3, 6.5, and 3.1. And combined overall, if we see the memory requirement by each of these algorithms was like 19.5, 25.9, 18.9. So after analysis, like Sphinx Plus was needing like 18.9. So Sphinx Plus and Kyber algorithm memory requirement was approximately the same. Dilithium was it needed a bit like more KBs of memory requirement. And energy cost analysis when on these IoT devices was done. So for ECC P256 algorithm, key operation like clock size was like 7.2, signing it was taking 15.3, verification 18.6. So the total energy consumption for ECC algorithm was like 41.1. On the other hand, for Kyber 512, it was 22, and for dilithium 2, it was 60.3. So if we compare these two charts, like if we try to analyze and understand like how the memory and because for IoT devices, it's not just the security, but at what cost security is coming to these embedded devices is also something like how efficient those devices can perform. So they have limitations of memory, they have limitations of power consumptions and all that, like everything. So that's why like these benchmarks were analyzed by certain research groups. And if you look at the lithium needed higher memory and higher consumption of total energy in comparison to Kyber and the other algorithms. So this is like a resource impact analysis of each of these algorithms. So key generation time, so these are certain metrics which have been analyzed across different algorithms. The key generation time for ECC was like 1x. For RSA, it was 30 times. For Kyber and Dilithium, like it was 1.5x and 2.8x. For signing or encryption, like again, RSA takes a lot more time in comparison to Kyber and Dilithium. For verification or decryption, like Kyber and RSA algorithms are taking approximately the same time, and ECC algorithm and Dilithium are like using the same algorithm. And the power profile, RSA, it has high spikes. For ECC, it is baseline. For Kyber, it is at the moderate level. And for Dilithium, it varies a bit, like depending upon like what IoT devices we have been using. And for battery life optimization, also like there was analysis done by like, so this is a report like from where this data has been pulled. So MIT's Energy Efficient Circuits and Systems Group. So Energy Aware Designs of PQC for IoT was the title of this, from where this table has been pulled up. So like for different operations, like what is the energy consumption by different algorithms, you will see in this chart. So energy per key exchange for ECC, it is like 53 millijoule approx. For Kyber, it is 82.7. For Dilithium and Sphinx, I didn't find any data over there. Energy per signature, if you look at, for Sphinx, it is very huge, by 740 approximately millijoule. And so relatively, if we see the cost of implementation of these algorithms on IoT devices also is like very huge, right? Like ECC, it is just 1x, Kyber 1.6, and Dilithium 5.1. But at the same end, like if you go with the Sphinx 128 version, right? So it is like 17.9x. So we really need to look at like what are the trade-offs between the choice of different algorithms in terms of energy consumption, memory limitation those IoT devices are having, and then we need to, and how much those IoT devices are critical to be secured. There are going to be certain trade-off between memory, energy consumption, and the type of algorithms which we can use. And based on that, we can decide like what exactly we should be picking up in terms of securing the IoT devices. So this is like optimization strategies, effectiveness table. So hardware acceleration, if you look at like, we have observed that it is like energy reduction was 60 to 90%, complexity was high, and cost was also high. If you talk about like coaching intermediate values, then it was like energy reduction was between 10 to 30%, and sleep between operation was like 15 to 45%, and the complexity was low for that strategy. And if you go with optimized memory access, then complexity is medium, cost is not like is free approx, and energy reduction will be also like by 5 to 15%. So these are some of the strategies, like what exactly we are looking for. Are we looking for hardware acceleration? We are looking for like caching intermediate values or sleep between operations and all. Based on that, we can think of like what optimization strategies we can pick. There can be the combination of strategies as well, which we can go with. But these are some of the like key areas, or you can say the KPIs, which needs to be looked at in terms of IoT devices. So talking about NIST, like NIST is the like main organization in US who is like steering all this research. And this chart is, by the way, a bit outdated. I didn't get time to update it, but if you will go to the given link, you will find the latest information. I think the recent 6 PQC conference already happened in Jan of Fab, I think. And after that, there have been certain announcement by the research scientists in this field. So after this, like these are the 3 algorithms which were like FIPS standards which have been published or recommended by NIST, FIPS 203, FIPS 204, 205. 203 is like module lattice-based key encapsulation mechanism. So it is like also known as MLK algorithm, which is getting used. Then we have FIPS 204, which is like lattice-based digital signature, and 205, which is straight-laced hash-based digital signature. I'm not going in depth in each of these types. Like there are a lot of information already available online. Like if you go and we'll find it. And again, like in this slide, again, we're going to focus more on the hybrid approaches, like how the transition strategy is working. So these are some of the strategies how people are trying to like migrate from classical to quantum side, and like RSA plus Kyber algorithm or ECC plus Kyber, ECC plus dilithium, ECC plus is Phoenix algorithm. So like what is the size overhead people are observing when they are using hybrid combination? What is the performance penalty which they have been observing, and implementation complexity like medium to high we have been seeing. So there was a like Google Chrome's CPO2 experiment. If you're not aware of, you can just Google it and you'll find the papers around it. And there have been like AWS, on AWS also there have been like there's a library available for ECC plus Kyber implementation, and we have OpenSSH 8.9 plus as well, which is sort of like using the hybrid approach. So these are some of the standards which even big tech companies and open source communities or groups are also following and trying to implement, so that it becomes easier for cybersecurity companies who are at the implementation layer, right? So there's one layer at the top which works in the research side in coming up with relevant algorithms, and that's where the like you can say computer scientist or algorithmic scientist or research scientist are. Then there is the next level of open source, and uh, so those companies or industry organizations who are sort of like evangelizing, enforcing, and making sure that how those things from the research groups are getting adapted and built in such a way that the adoption becomes easier. Then third is the consumption layer, where the middle those organizations tries to help the organization and companies in coming up with strategies and migration techniques. So there are a lot of like future trends going on in this field. Like we have AI in security, like how we can sort of like mitigate and anticipate certain risk using cyber threat modeling with the help of AI. Then we have like quantum encryption, like how we can sort of like make use of post-quantum cryptographic techniques. So to make ourselves safe and secure from any sort of quantum attack. Then the advanced threats as well, which is going along. Right. So how we can prepare ourselves for change cryptography, like we have to look at the algorithms, what are the common API across cryptographic algorithms. Some of the implementation examples for algorithms are like Wolfscript, ARM, PSA, cryptographic algorithms and all. And how we can configure the parameters, algorithm selection at the runtime. For that, we have AWS LC library. How we can look at the security update mechanism. For that, we have like so this is more of like OT updates for crypto modules. For that, we have like DICE or our IoT architecture. This is more specific to like IoT side. Then we have like how the like version tracking for compatibility can be handled. And for that, we have like X.509 extensions. So Microsoft also recently for like I don't know like how many of you have been following the trends by these companies as well along with the research group. So Microsoft has this Azure Sphere Crypto Agility layer, which you can go and explore. We have ARM platform security architecture for crypto API, and we have like NIST automated cryptographic validation algorithm, validation program, which is sort of like which can help the organizations to prepare for the change and can they can stay up to date like with like where this whole industry is moving or shifting. So talking about some of the ultra weight, so where the knowledge gap arise, right? Like we are not even aware of like, I mean, for research scientists, they are in the separate league and group. Like I'm nowhere in comparison to that, or in terms of even knowledge, like whatever I'm talking, like it's half-baked information you can say I have based on my research and readings and referencing through different materials, blogs, and libraries. But the gap arises when we are not aware of like what kind of research labs we have, where what work is happening. I mean, some of the big tech companies, they are able to follow up with the trends because they have the tie-up with such big research institutes and labs. But for small scale companies or mid enterprises, they're not like paying that much attention still, like even after like NIST announcement and recommendation as well. So how those awareness can be made across all level of enterprises and groups is like by making them aware, is like what institutes are like available within their region and globally, who is working on what is the focus area by these institutions. Some of the institutions I've mentioned here, like University of Oxford, they are like focusing on hardware acceleration side. Their the research group name is like PQ Shield Research. In KU Leuven, we have LightSec Lab. They are focused on energy optimized PQC techniques. We have PQ Crypto from Redbound University. Pardon for certain spelling mistakes, which I can just see now. They are focused on like side channel protection. Then we have Crossing Research Group into Darmstadt. They are focused on like optimized implementation and some of the key innovations what they have been coming up with so far, right? So if we talk about like emerging mathematical approaches, we have like middle product learning with errors. Like we will see 20% smaller keys than string LWE. We have multivariate cryptographic revival. We have super singular isogeny based systems. These are the new approach after site failure, right? Some of the research recent papers, like if you will go, so this is like still 2023, 2022 I've mentioned, but there have been recent announcement, recent papers you will find on Nature, Stranger Journals, or even on Google Scholar, like how these things are shifting. Some of these papers will sort of like build base good knowledge in terms of like why post-quantum security is important for IoT endpoints, what kind of like signature or encryption-based algorithms we have, and how we can sort of like think of optimizing PQC algorithms for embedded devices. So this is sort of like standardization roadmap. So NIST, if we talk, so these are some of the international bodies, organizations you can see. NIST is from US, so a lot of you will be already aware of. We have ISO standard, we have ETSI, IETF, global platforms, right? So what their key focus by these organizations have been like NIST, if we talk about, they focus on PQC algorithms, and draft 4 was released recently. IETF, they are on like TLS or IPsec site with PQC, multiple drafts they have, and they have expected completion around 2026. ISO is like is focusing on PQC framework. They have their own study period. Like they are not way ahead in terms of that. We have ETSI, they are like looking at quantum safe standards. This is also ongoing. We have global platform, like they are focusing on secure element PQC. They have the working group and expected completion was 2025 for them. And if I talk about like industry consortium efforts, like why I've mentioned all these things, because we need to aware of like what kind of collaboration is happening, what kind of research organizations or bodies are there where we can, I mean, even if you're not implementing anything, even if you're not involved at the research level or at the creation of the algorithms, or even at the forefront of like testing those algorithms, but still for at least for the knowledge purpose, we need to be aware of certain consortiums, groups to stay up to date with like what is happening in these areas, right? So these are some of the industry consortiums like Trusted Computing Group we have. They are like then we have GSM IoT Security Group, like they look for PQC requirements for cellular IoT devices. We have Cloud Security Alliance. They have their own IoT PQC working group. Then there are certain certification frameworks as well, common criteria like PP0017, adaptation for PQC. FIPS validation we've already seen, which is in development and certain release or announcement has already been met. We have IoT Security Foundations certification extension. Then strategic roadmap development, if we talk about NIST has been leading and playing tremendous and have been like putting up tremendous effort in like making sure that the research group and the scientists are coming all together in terms of like uh, in terms of like advancing the post-quantum cryptographic algorithms and making sure that the systems can be secure, because there's a huge risk not just to like IoT devices. Like this session I curated more around IoT devices to like educate the people around that. But if you look at different kind of like industries, be it the healthcare, defense, banking and all, everything is at huge risk, right? Like how the research is moving in that direction and how even the advancement is happening in the like with the quantum computers. So we have Europe Quantum Technology Flagship Program as well. And recently China also like was in the news. They started with their, I mean, they have already their own post-quantum cryptographic group as well, and they launched their own fund also for that. These are some of the like common or well-known companies in the industry. They have developed open source packages as well, and they're helping the organizations in migrating from classical encryption to the post-quantum cryptographic algorithm. So they try to analyze this like organizational existing cryptographic standards, and they come up with the strategies and ways of mitigating that, and then the implementation gets started. There are a lot of like AI for PQC use cases as well, like analyzing the PQ post-quantum cryptographic algorithms, developing side channel attacks, optimizing the quantum algorithms with the help of AI. AI is sort of like powering steal now, decrypt later attacks as well, so how we can be safe from that. Creating adversarial examples for post-quantum cryptographic algorithms, whatever is getting designed, right? So these are some of the like use cases of AI for PQC. There are many more, like if we go in depth. So these were like still these are the like due dates under executive order by NIST. So we are here like identify and engage with foreign entities on PQC. And these are the moving ahead timelines, like prioritizing funding for development of data sets for cyber research by June 2025. By July 2025, like publish a preliminary update to the SSTF and update BGP guidance and guidance on other emerging tech. And so on. Like in September 2025, we evaluate common cybersecurity control outcomes. October, we have like guidance for cloud service providers like AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, Oracle, and all. And by November 2025, we should like they are going to come up with final version of the updated SSTF. So this is how the executive order look like by NIST. So I mean, before ending this presentation, like if we have to just focus on like for the IoT devices, right? Like you can, I mean, these parameters can vary a bit. I will not say that this is the exact weightage you should go for, but you can think of what all criteria you can consider to analyze or to make decisions for incorporating or implementing any of the algorithms for the embedded devices, right? So these algorithms you can replace with like whatever is recent and up to date in the industry. Play around with the weightage, like what importance you want to give to which of the criterias, and then seeing which algorithms fit then in your use case. So some of the like criterias can be execution time, energy impact, key or signature size, security margin, RAM usage, ROM footprint, and all. So with this, I will stop the session. I tried like moving ahead a bit fast to cover up the topic in time. I'm open to questions. I don't know how much I will be able to answer by my own, like
Yeah,
considering
so
I'm still a noob, but yeah.
yeah, so Shadab, can you answer what are the potential consequences if developing nations fail to adopt post-quantum cryptography for IoT?
Yes, so I mean, consequences not just for developing nation, even if the developed nation they fail to deal with the consequences. So even for the developing nation, also like be it in Asia, South Africa, or other regions globally, it is very important that they also get involved with these kind of research groups globally, and the developed nation should encourage those developing nations so that they also are aware of like what is happening in the field of security because of the quantum computer side. Because a lot of like me coming from India, also like I have seen there are very less number of researchers working on post-quantum cryptographic side. They are trying to get there, but they're not actively involved as people are involved in US or Europe or other places which are already developed.
And someone, Louis, asked, what about embedded cryptography in hardware?
What
The
is
question,
the question?
what about embedded cryptography in hardware?
Yeah, embedded cryptography we talk about, right? So these are the some of the algorithms and charts I've already presented, yeah, right? Like how the
Yeah, okay, yeah,
things look like and what kind of research groups are working in that direction. The question is not clear to me, like what about embedded hardware? IoT is the
hardware.
hardware
Okay.
devices only, right?
Louis, are you able to come off, Louis, Louis, can you come off mute, perhaps?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, it's not only hardware, the quantum computers themselves to me, should have some cryptography embedded actually in the hardware, at least some basic level with even some an ethical layer and that sort of thing. So even though there's mostly software,
Hmm.
there should be something in the hardware and something to protect the hardware itself from being
Yes.
from being hacked, right? Using computers. So there's got to be some balance there because we've got to think of the hardware, not just algorithms and software. That leads to me. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, so it's a combination of both, Louis, actually. So that's why like I put up this slide together actually so that we can look at like different research group, and they're not just focused on the software side, they're focused on different key area, right? Because if we talk about the hardware side, the energy efficient utilization of the energy is equally important as the security is important or as the hardware acceleration is important. So there's like combination of different type of like research you can see like by different research groups, which is like considering hardware as well in like how efficient the hardwares can be designed and can be secured. Uh, but like I don't have like complete information you can say at the current stage to answer that question completely. But as far as I'm aware of, there are research group focused on the hardware security and acceleration as well of quantum computers. Yeah.
Shadab, could I ask a question?
Yes, please, Terry.
This goes back to my earlier comments. This is an area that I've tracked since, gosh, I guess the 80s when they first came out the optimistic estimates.
Mhm.
I remember reading an article that said I think it was 15 qubits, double digit, 10 teens of qubits would break every encryption code. Essentially, exactly the same argument that you mentioned at the beginning of your talk.
Mm.
My problem is that, hold on a second, saying confirm my speaking language. I am speaking English. Okay. No idea why it asks me that. So I watched for decades in which the argument in which people must prepare for this has been identical. There's been no change. I was an enthusiastic supporter of this argument for at least, I guess David Deutsch spoke to us in the 80s. It's been a long time, and I was fully committed to this idea. But when I see these simulation arguments about how the algorithms will work, those
Mm.
are arguments. It's superb. Don't get me wrong. These are very well. I love your math and things you're doing on this. But I keep going back to this question: what are the actual quantum computers doing right now? Because I've had no indication that any quantum computing is implementing any of these algorithms yet. And I
Yes.
did something, but last time I saw it, they were actually backing off from it, at least in one report. So I haven't checked up on it in the last few months, last year maybe, but I remember about a year ago, at least one report just sort of said like, yeah, we're kind of doing analog computing, which is a horrendous statement if you think about it. That's an expensive way to do analog computing.
Yeah.
Analog computing always gives a benefit. In fact, one of the earliest conversations I had with when they first came out with the algorithm was just that. Could we emulate this using some kind of classical analog device to at least get a head start on that? So we had some interesting discussions way back when. But can anybody update me on how is this going? How's the actual progress, not just in terms of benchmarks, but in terms of saying implementing a prime factoring algorithm? Has anybody shown real progress on that or not?
Yes, so there are you aware of this PQC Google group, Raji, by any chance? Wait.
Well, I can take a crack at that if you'd like.
Now, who is speaking?
Dave Chapman.
Oh, Dave. Okay, yes.
Hey, hi.
Yeah, we were hoping for a while there to observe something like Moore's Law, and we were hoping that the number of qubits in a state-of-the-art quantum computer would be doubling every few years, maybe every 3 or 4 years. Instead, the progress has been more linear, and it's not completely clear to me why this is. So at the current rate of progress, most people agree that a cryptologically relevant quantum computer, if it's running a digital algorithm, that is, it's a digital quantum computer and it's running a digital algorithm, it's going to require at least 100,000 gates in order to be able to break mainstream current contemporary stuff.
And that would be logical gates.
Those are logic, of course, those are logical gates, right?
Yeah.
So at the same time, you look at an algorithm, like let's say that part of your break is, let's say you're going to break AES 256. Okay. And one of the things you're going to implement as part of the break is you're going to create a quantum computer function where you give it plain text and a key and outcomes ciphertext, such that you can give it some superposition of keys and the output will be some superposition of the corresponding ciphertext. Everybody got that? You're looking at a situation where you would have superposition of keys goes in, superposition of ciphertext comes out. Now, in order to do that, you need to have f of x comma y, the function that produces ciphertext equals plain text comma key, fit on your quantum computer. And if I recall correctly, AES 256 has 16 rounds and 16 sets of subkeys. So you figure you're going to need 256 wide data pads, and you're going to need 16 non-trivial sets of data operations. So we'll just wave our hands and say 16,000 qubits. That's absolutely the minimum number. As a practical matter, you'd need more than that because you're not going to be just like doing a encryption decryption. You're going to have some, rest of the algorithm, and you're going to be feeding in possibilities, and you're going to have something that recognizes when you have succeeded in breaking the message, and so on and so forth. So you get numbers on the order of 100,000 qubits, is my point. We don't seem to be anywhere close to that right now. Now, in the commercial world, interestingly enough, to do things like optimizing the settings of an oil refinery or optimizing your Amazon trucks delivery schedules, that seems to require even more qubits, on the order of 1 million.
There are ways to do that by using quantum annealers, and people are actually doing that now.
Right,
Optimizing truck routes. It's not gate-based stuff though.
right. Well, the thing is that the quantum annealers, I'm unaware of any algorithms that you can use for breaking crypto with those. So,
Well, so the quantum annealer approach is to run the factoring program backwards, but again, it becomes a size and width issue
right.
that you just, I mean, they could theoretically do it. In fact, there's a DWave has a demo that shows you how to run the factor a small number by running the multiplication backwards.
Now, I'm willing to listen to people who tell me paranoid stories about how, oh yeah, there's been a breakthrough. It was 20 years ago, and it's in a cave somewhere. Ignoring that possibility, what seems to be going on is that the funding agencies have been mostly distributing most of the money to the usual suspects. So we've seen an awful lot of money going to the Lockheeds and major defense contractors, the usual suspects. And they're, you know, they're very good at producing reports, but they don't seem to be very good at producing technology. Meanwhile, we have not been funding non-tenured professors, which is the group that's the most cost effective if you want to get results. So I don't know how this is going to play out, but what it looks like to me is that we are currently a long way from having 100,000 logical qubits.
Also,
No
on the
argument
annealer,
there.
DWave has been around for so long. I mean, they were the first company I ever talked to from when I was in OSD, working at OSD. You know, and it's an interesting technology, but as one person I remember looking at years ago, he said he wasn't convinced it was even quantum. It was kind of saying it depends a little bit on how you define your terms.
D-Wave's machines don't use true qubits. They don't.
Right,
Qubits
right.
don't
Right.
conform to the
And
full
they've been doing this for a
DiVincenzo
long
criteria.
time. Yeah.
But I actually just came back 2 weeks ago from the D-Wave conference, and you know, their roadmap for where they're going. I mean, they're focused on a very narrow type of problem, and they all falls under the heading of optimization problems, and specifically any type of optimization problem that you can turn into a binary quadratic of various different forms is the kinds of things that they can solve. And this is technology that works. I've demonstrated that it works. I've demonstrated that even though you know, there is no quantum supremacy per se, but in the business world, all I got to do is perform better than classical.
Right.
And D-Wave is doing that now. I did a demo where it's called, if you look into it on D-Wave, it's called the 3D bin packing demo. And I had access to that for a while, for quite a long time. Was able to show that running the that demo on the classical machine with a certain set of parameters, which basically built a very tough problem, like putting 40 packages into a smaller container. After an hour of classical time, no solution was generated, but the quantum machine found something in like 15 seconds.
Right.
You know, that's a business ROI, and business people don't care that
It's really quantum or not.
it's not quantum supremacy yet, and it isn't, because if you run if you run, in those, most of these optimizations, if you have enough horsepower and enough time to run it, you can solve it. But if you're packing a shipping container, you probably got a 10-minute window to do it,
Yeah, well, if you noticed my criticisms of the funding agencies, and they're essentially giving the money to the wrong people. I think
Well-
DWave's fundamental problem in the community, and especially in the academic part of the community, is that they're still trying to live down their reputation as a bunch of scammers.
Yeah, they
Really
are
true.
getting better at that. They've released a lot of
They're getting better at scamming or getting better at not giving that impression.
no, they're getting better at making sure that they check out what they publish.
Well, also
Yeah.
I mean, the initial problem was they came out making all these amazing claims, and then totally refused to tell anybody anything about how it works.
Yeah.
And and everybody who, what was that, 99 or something, and everybody who had anything to do with quantum computers was being asked, well, what about D-Wave? And you'd sit there, and the first couple of people, you patiently explain to them that D-Wave's made some very interesting claims, but they haven't actually proven these claims. And no, this is not kindergarten. I'm not telling you, can you prove it, Johnny? No, they refused to publish anything. And after a while, enough people started saying it looks like it's crap. And then you could truthfully say to third-party interlocutors, the consensus in the community is that they're a scam. We don't know.
Yeah, and that's very sad, because right now they're the only platform, in my opinion, that delivers business level solutions.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
That's
They
really sad.
misbehaved and they fucked up, and
Yeah.
and they still have that reputation.
Now keep in mind that if annealing is equivalent, for instance, to some forms of analog computing, you can get a powerful computing game and a real one, and one that's of value to business. So the fact that they can do some certain algorithms that might be useful does not mean that it doesn't mean that they're useless. But the question is whether it's actually quantum. This was the whole debate I had with Peter Shor, a discussion I had with Peter Shor a long time ago, is could this be made as if you don't have the entanglement, you wind up with what's really wave superposition in a very analog, in a very classical fashion, which is an analog computer, because an analog computer is a superposition of an enormous number of wave states. That's why you get a lot of power out of analog computing. People sometimes, I don't think, realize that that's why analog computings are so darn fast, is because they are superposition machines. What they don't have is entanglement. There's no version of the entanglement issue coming into those things. So, and by the way, I talked to Peter Shor when I was working at OSD, and his opinion, as the best I recall, was he was asking about D-Wave, and for support for what people just said, I think his attitude was like, no, not really. So he certainly wasn't a huge fan, and I don't want to quote too exactly because it was long.
I have a question. So what do you say about the publication made by Google in 2019, when they proved that they demonstrate the supremacy of quantum computing over classical computing? So is that not true, or it's true? That's
That's a good question.
I think they retracted it after a while.
Yeah. Well, the consensus now is that they came up with a contrived problem, and that they demonstrated that for a contrived problem, the quantum computer was,
Right.
10 to the very large number faster than the best classical algorithm. Of course, that mainly motivated classical algorithm people to come up with better classical algorithms, which reduced the gap. But I mean, look, what Google has the corporate problem, without like talking out of school or saying stuff that's, non-public. There are a lot of people out there in corporate America and in the federal government who are looking at this and saying, why are we spending so much money on this shit? I'm paraphrasing slightly, but that is what they're saying. And you can imagine that these guys, if once they get to a point where they're under pressure to produce some kind of results, will produce some kind of results. I have a lot of sympathy for that.
I see you've worked in the government contracting, Dave, or at least been touched by it.
Excuse me?
I see you've worked in government contracting or been touched by
Oh,
it.
yes, actually. Yeah, you know why the United States is #1 in military stuff? It's because everybody else has the exact same organizational problems we do. Yeah, we'd be in a world of trouble if somebody came up with an efficient military-industrial complex.
One of the organizations actually I was the chief scientist for it, but we looked for private sector, small company innovations that we could then apply to not just Department of Defense, but federal. And it was some of the stuff we found was just amazing. Amazing. FireEye. I mean, FireEye was a small garage outfit.
All right.
It just sold for $2 billion later.
Check out Anduril.
What's that?
Anduril.
Anduril.
They make cruise missiles.
Oh, okay.
They make a bunch of other stuff. It's all like it was started by teenage gamers. Seriously.
I like the two guys who didn't know that it was impossible to do a certain kind of compression that had been theoretically proven possible, so they just went ahead and did it anyway. Because the theorists had not taken into account the time dimension of the compression domains and what was possible on that axis. So it's so easy to have a presumption that you can fail on, and that's what was so fun with these small companies.
Right.
They would break an assumption that everybody said, "Well, that's obvious," and things had changed. It wasn't obvious. Getting back to the
right
quantum computing part, one of the things that bothers me about this sequence is they're saying 100,000 bits. If you take David Deutsch's original arguments or the adaptations of them, I don't know it's fair to blame it completely on him, but he was an extreme Everett mini-worldist. And I bought this argument. I said, okay, so you're accessing an infinite number of worlds and essentially you got infinite computation. That's why you come up with these estimates of like 15 qubits. Because if you have infinite worlds with infinite computation, you just go to town, do whatever you want to.
No, I don't believe that's correct. I believe that those people who are talking 15 qubits were using super encoding methods, which imply very, very low noise figures.
Right, essentially zero noise figures. But that was the argument at that time, and it carried weight. At that time, it carried weight. It's one of the arguments that scared bejeebers out of a lot of quantum encryption people in that time frame. Now, these days, it seems naive, but it wasn't at that time.
Well, once you build a few of these things, you quickly discover.
Hey, Terry and Dave, I just wanted to interject this. Anybody ever hear about this guy with a high school education that was a vacuum cleaner repairman in Toronto back in the 70s? You ever hear about that guy? His name was Sid Hurvich. You ever heard of that guy? You ever hear about the raid on Entebbe from July 4th of 1976? Well, good old Sid Hurvich got the medal, the highest civilian medal that you can get from the state of Israel, because he invented a time freezing device where you could basically set it on a table and freeze time. And the reason I'm bringing this up is you guys were talking about innovation in the military industrial complex. Israel still has this device. And they brought in 2 C-130s under cover of darkness. And one of them had a black painted limousine. So they thought it was Idi Amin driving up at the terminal there. And they had the element of surprise. But they also had Sid Hurvich's device. And you can go look this up. It's Hurwitz, Hurvich, Sid Hurvich. So he had this device back in the mid-70s. The Israeli Defense Forces used it with great success, and they tried to scrub it from the internet. So I've got some information about it if you want to know about it. But basically, he was warping physics and freezing time to give them a strategic advantage to go in and rescue those hostages. So
The
yeah,
strategic advantage to be used by this thing would be to make a shitload of money playing the stock market. So
For the lotto.
or for taking it on interesting dates.
Hey, yeah,
but I just bring it up. It's one of my favorite stories on the internet, and I'm a big fan of Israel and what they did in Entebbe.
well, they've been doing a lot of stuff recently. If you follow the history of drones, you'll know that the Israelis were flying model airplanes with camcorders stuck on them over the Golan Heights in the Baca Valley back in the 70s. And I always thought the funniest thing about that technology was that the Syrians would occasionally shoot them down with a SAM-2 or a SAM-3. It was a model airplane with a camcorder on it. Total cost maybe $5,000.
Sure.
Quick solutions. It is amazing what you can do with existing technology. Release your brain a little bit.
Yeah.
William, I am going to have to call on that one thing. I've been in environments where, where the DoD was looking for technologies, and my general conclusion is when there are incredible technologies available, they don't stay secret. The
Right.
best I've encountered keeping secrets were the venture capitalists. They were better at keeping secrets than the CEOs of the companies. They were better at keeping secrets than the Department of Defense. They were the only ones that I couldn't dig in the internet to find out more about some technology that had been proposed to us. And usually I could find the CEO who just couldn't resist somewhere. They would blab a little bit about it. If you had a technology that literally could freeze time, and I don't know what that means, I literally have no concept of what it would mean physically to do that. You accelerate there's all sorts of ways in which that becomes an incredibly implausible physical scenario. But if they did it like somebody said that Dave Chapman, it would get out in the stock market. There would be too many ways to make money off of it. And that's generally been, it's the same thing I think about the Area 52 stuff. If this really had these kind of technologies, you better believe it's going to get out there. People are not that good at keeping the secrets. So maybe some of the venture capitalists, old style venture capitalists these days, I'm not sure what's
Those guys are amazing in terms of their ability to keep stuff under the table.
You bet they are. And we had a group of them who were given a special access. So it was nice of them. They would propose these companies that otherwise we wouldn't have seen. And these were volunteers. I think we paid them $1 a year or something, but they were volunteers.
Right.
And I just still am so impressed by small innovators and what they can do. And I mean that in academia, and I mean that there, but it's just, there's some really, that's where you get the good thinking. The giant behemoths, too much politics, it quickly crushes the ability to be innovative, because if you are innovative, as soon as you do it, somebody else is going to get jealous of you and do everything they can to squash you, the way the dynamic usually works. So there's reasons why giant corporations have trouble with that. Some of them manage to sneak around that problem, but it's tough. And it's too bad we can't encourage more of that. But
well, I think we beat this one to death. So what's our conclusion? They're going to, as soon as this stuff gets standardized, they're going to start rolling it out into the IoT space, and then it'll be out there. We won't be able to clean out the existing IoT stuff for a decade or more.
Yeah, so I think with IoT, it's more like how we are moving towards the standard encryption of PQC, right? How we can pay a bit of attention to the IoT devices as well. And plans. Obviously, there are certain limitations still with the quantum computers, and we have not seen a lot of breakthroughs in this domain, be it like post-quantum attacks, quantum computer actual attacks as such. But these are some of the resources I wanted to share to like stay ahead in the curve. So if we follow closely these groups and what breakthroughs and what is the like logic or implementation people have been doing in this industry, we'll be able to see like how the actual implementations are getting done and on what basis or facts they are saying that these kind of attacks can happen in actual. So there are like certain limitations as well at the same time, but at the same time there are certain realistic approaches as well what people have been moving towards. And more than that, like there have been certain competitions also like which are getting rolled by some of the organizations. QDayPrize.com is one where they have launched one such competition like can you break ECC with quantum? I mean, so this is more of like not anticipating in near terms, like when we'll have like thousands of qubit of quantum computers. Like with existing quantum computers itself, can we try at least to reach to a certain extent close to that? So these kind of approaches companies are launching. Then this was one of the like Gartner's report, if you look at. So they're like they also anticipated around like what will be the transition time frame and how it's going to be ongoing. So this is like one of the crypto agility timeline, like published in one of the reports by Gartner, and this is like one of the research papers which I came across. So I wanted to share this also with the community. This is a comprehensive like review on lightweight post-quantum cryptography. So we can refer to such resources to see like what people are talking about, what researchers are analyzing, and where this whole thing is moving. Because like I myself don't consider myself as a like security expert or even IoT security expert, but this presentation was wholly just based on like information gathered from different sources, labs, and what is available publicly out there, right? So these are some of the latest research papers which I was referring while presenting to the slide also, like whatever I talked about today. So this can be like good starting point to understand like what are some of the like anticipated attacks, type of efficiency we are looking for in IoT devices. We'll find like in these papers. So a couple of links I've shared, like go through it, see like what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. There have always been like different opinions by different scientists and researchers. And even I'm trying to learn this like conversation. What I was just hearing between Terry, Dev, and all was like very interesting to know about. So that's what I had to present today. And one such organization, I think William shared some of the links by such, I mean, from QSECDF, right?
Yeah, he
So,
has his hand up.
yep, QSECDF. So they host specific meetups, but they have their own working group also for quantum security. So we can just look at like what people are talking about and publishing here as well. So they have a lot of like online meetups or webinars as well happening, and people, experts coming in from like different backgrounds, from different areas, like industry and scientists both presenting their work and talking about like what is happening in this field. Yes, William.
Yeah, real quick, I wanted to give you guys some numbers because I know we're all computer geeks and number freaks.
Yes.
The number of people on planet Earth is roughly about 8 billion, and I think there's about 5 billion people on the internet. The number of IoT devices, the last reliable number that I heard is somewhere around 50 billion. So these are just IoT devices. So it's not a small problem. And I think we're going to have to come up with some way, not only with an effective solution, but to automate it, because how else can you address a problem that has 50 billion endpoints?
Devices. Yep.
And if people go back and look at the chat, I get nothing for this. I like to share. Go back and look, scroll up, and you can see an IoT security presentation I put together in 2017. Even though it's 8 years old, it's still remarkably relevant. So feel free to take advantage of that.
This one, right?
It's
Really?
called billslater.com/ I think it's IoT 2017.pdf. No,
I
no.
think-
Let's see. I'll tell you where it is. I can put it back out there if you want it. Oh, here.
I got
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And I confess, I'm a Raspberry Pi geek, so this really resonated with me. There's some really good slides here, and if you studied the Mirai botnet attack of October 2016, that just showed 50 billion on there. But there's at the end of this presentation, there's some anecdotal stuff about how to batten down the hatches for IoT. So even though, don't be put off by the age of this paper, there's still some great stuff that stood the test of time.
Yeah, this is a really nice presentation, William.
Thank you very
I hope
much.
I would have come across this before preparing my slide. DOS attacks and all that stuff. Nice.
Right.
Which slide you want me to go to, William? I can.
Well, the takeaways on Mirai botnet were good, but go up a few slides and there's some really good IoT security stuff. But keep in mind, we couldn't even spell PQC back in 2017. Go up a couple more slides and you'll see it a little bit higher. Okay, this presentation, okay, how can we protect organizations from this? It tells you how Mirai botnet worked. And Mirai botnet did use IoT devices to do these DDoS attacks. Go to the next slide. President Obama, who was probably the geekiest president we ever had, and I try to avoid politics, but I don't mind calling a spade in terms of technical capabilities. Probably the most technological president we ever had. Less than 30 days after the Mirai botnet attack, he commissioned this study to provide strategic principles for securing Internet of Things. And I think you might still be able to get this on the web, but I find that at the speed of government, which I often don't admire, that was a big deal for President Obama to commission this study and have this out less than 30 days after the Mirai botnet attack. So we would be lucky to have such a technological president anytime after Obama, right?
Nice, interesting slides, William. Like slides here. I think NIST PQC for embedded also started somewhere around 2020 or 2021. People
Right.
started forming the group for that. But now, like from last 2-3 years, we are seeing some significant amount of papers coming online from researchers.
Well, this is 2017.
Yep.
Future updates of this paper should definitely include elements of your stuff, Shabad, because we need to impress upon people that if your encrypted messaging is worthless, then your whole system is worthless. So we need to kick it into high gear.
Yes. Okay.
But guys, I really enjoyed meeting everyone and participating, and I think I'll be a regular attendee. I hope you guys come out to our meetings, because I think there's a lot of synergy here, and y'all can learn from us, and we can definitely learn from you. So I'm so happy to take part. Also want to give a shout out to my partner, Joe Reddix, who I'm working closely with, and we're doing quantum foundry stuff
Nice.
with a large government agency. So you'll probably see both of us on a regular basis.
Nice, nice. So, nice, William. So, thanks for keeping this discussion very lively. It was just because of all of you, William, Perry, Dave, and everyone on the call, right? Thanks a lot for this. And even I'm actively involved in quantum. So if there's any more talks, presentations online, and recently I've moved to Chicago as well. So if anyone is based out of Chicago, I'd be happy to meet in person or collaborate for any of the online or offline events here.
I have a question.
I'm in Chicago.
I have two questions actually. The first one is I read an article. It was, I think, is a physicist. He was saying that people are doing quantum computing in the wrong way, and what he was saying that people think that when we talked about this the Schrödinger cat being in people think that the cat is at the same time dead and alive. And what he was trying to say that in his opinion is that the cat cannot be at the same time dead and alive. It is in one of the state. Either it is alive or it is dead. And so I'm a little bit confused. So what is the true theory behind that? Is the cat either dead or alive, or the cat can be dead or alive at the same time?
It's supposed to
That's
demonstrate the
my first question.
principle
Jarvis?
of measuring the state of a system. You don't know what it is until you
Yep.
observe it. So if you don't know the state of the cat until you open the box, so you have to assume it's in both states.
The one thing that we can assume from all this, Ryan, I think that's a great answer, but the one thing we can assume for all this is that when Schrodinger came up with his thought experiment, there was no such thing as the American Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. So,
well, the funny thing about Schrodinger's cat is he didn't tell this story. He wasn't the first one to tell this story, and I forget who the first person was. Basically published the same thing, but Schrodinger came along and inserted a cat, and I think it got more press and attention because it involved a cat.
Yep.
Was he going to know that years later that cats are going to be the superstars of YouTube and the internet? But
Did you know that when Einstein,
he didn't come up with the thought experiment. He just came up with a better way to tell it.
when Einstein came up with the twins paradox, he didn't use twins, he used microbes. He actually proposed sending out he didn't specify what, some kind of small organism in a ship, and then it would come back and it would be generations later. But I thought it was kind of amusing that he didn't actually use humans for it, but he very definitely came up with that idea of sending a ship out, bringing it back, and then there would be this aging effect. Very radical concept at the time.
Einstein had a thought experiment prior to Schrodinger's cat that involved a cask of dynamite that would be detonated if something happened. And his point was that the dynamite or the gunpowder that's detonated is different than the gunpowder that is not detonated, and that it was more or less the same idea as Schrodinger. It's one of these ideas that's been around in one form or another for a lot longer than you think.
Jarvis, for whatever it's worth, I have a very different answer for most folks on Schrodinger's cat. Schrodinger was doing that to prove that it was ridiculous, by the way. Don't blame Schrodinger.
Yeah.
His whole point was that this can't happen.
This is idiotic.
Exactly. Schrodinger was adamant that it was an idiotic idea. And he gets blamed as being the one who said, oh, look, these complex states are being superposed to each other. And it is just, it's kind of hilarious that was so what he was not trying to do. He was trying to make people think and say, well, there's something wrong with how we're approaching this. So Giverson, what I would say in that is, I'm a proponent of what I call bottom-up causality. Every event that involves even just a shift in momentum is essentially a violation, is a breaking of what a quantum state is. The reason those states are bound by certain boundaries that allow them to be modeled by a quantum wave function. But the actual details is we break down much faster. I sometimes refer to quantum collapse as the fundamental operation for the classical universe. We don't see it because it's so common. It happens all the time. And then it's only these rare cases where we prevent it from happening that we suddenly notice something. So if you take that viewpoint, there's never a superposition of complex states. That doesn't happen. But what you do have is superpositions of spatial locations. What happens if you take that approach of bottom-up locality is you have to drop space and time to a less fundamental level in which it becomes attached to the particular inertial frame, which is a pretty heretical idea. You easily say that, but at the same time, we always say, everybody has their own definition of space and time. The trick is you have to recognize that winds up getting attached to a particular system with boundaries to it. And that actually is just straight out of the math. So very interesting universe. If you go with a bottom-up causality, you just don't get those particular paradoxes, but you have to reduce space and time to being presentations of a more complex kind of underlying change mechanism. And I think that's an intriguing one. It's also where I think some of the real power of quantum computing comes from that different way of looking at it. There's ways of constructing these things that you don't expect. So for whatever, that's my answer. I'll be talking on it in June 14th, I think. So if you're interested, you can take a listen there.
Thank you so much.
Have we all tangentialized enough here?
William, you mentioned Quantum Foundry.
Yes.
Is this with the people that are putting on a thing here in Chicago in May? At a different Quantum Foundry.
Yeah, that's what there are many I can see on.
Well,
Is it?
we're going international, myself and Joe. But Ron, if you want to send me information about the activity in May, I'd probably definitely participate. I put something in the chat window. I've suggested this for our own quantum group, but Helen, all deference to you. Sometimes women respond to women quicker than they will guys, and so these are 4 women in quantum that. But by the way, this is an outstanding webpage. This webpage just blows me away. She just nailed everything in it, including the basics of quantum computations. But anyway, this woman is a young lady, Surya.
Ramanan.
Yeah, and this one, Urmila Mahadev, is not only I think she's American-born Indian. She teaches at Caltech now. She spent 8 years working on an algorithm to prove that a quantum computer had done the job. 8 years. And they asked her, they said, well, aren't you glad this contributed toward your doctoral degree? And she said, I wasn't worried about getting my doctoral degree. I was worried about solving the problem. So she's one of my heroes. And this lady, Lene Howe, was the first human being to stop light. She used the Bose-Einstein condensate, and basically she's slowed light down to 30,000 kilometers per second, and then she slowed it down. She stopped it. She stopped light. And so in my estimation, you know, she's a superstar, you know, regardless of gender or nationality or whatever. You know, I've been in science for a long time, and I like the idea that somebody could slow 3 times 10 to the 10th centimeters per second down to 0 and freeze it. Imagine what you could do with that. She did that in 1999. But all 4 of these women, Helen, if you're taking notes, should be invited to come out to your group, because you know, these are all rock stars in my opinion, and we need more women in quantum computing. I'd like to you know, inspire women to get involved too. And we have several women at our
Yeah,
quantum group.
there is this scientist as well, Elizabeth Sinha. Like she's well-known scientist across the nation, like globe.
Oh,
Like
really?
she's from India. Yep.
Excellent.
So her work is like awarded a lot, and like she has been invited to a lot of like places, be it Jesta Summit in Switzerland, and she's contributing a lot to quantum space. So she's the one, and a few more like women scientists in quantum. It's like one is Catherine. I need to find her on LinkedIn, I think. Sorry for that.
Yeah, do you have an email that we could send to you a different female quantum scientist? I'm forgetting the name, but there's one in Libya as well.
Libya, Tripoli or Benghazi.
I
I
believe tri
I
I believe, I will send to you, I believe Tripoli, but I don't mark me on that. But yeah, if you have an email, I will send it to you.
oh yeah,
Uh
sure.
the mail, yeah,
I've
sorry.
taught believe it or not, Libyan. I traveled to Istanbul 4 years ago to teach Libyan cybersecurity operators. We all met in Istanbul, and the funny thing is they were all like secret agents, so they wouldn't let me take a group photo with them. But they really appreciate what I contributed to their professional growth.
Oh yeah, have you met Abdul Malik Beytumal? He came here to Miami.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's in Tripoli. So yeah, he co-authored some work with a female Libyan scientist. So yeah, if you share your email or any way to contact you, we can
Sure.
send some cool people to look at.
I'm the most reachable guy on the internet, and also one of the nicest guys on the internet. And you can just ask Joe Reddy, and he'll tell you.
Oh, awesome.
Does anybody know
Yeah,
Dr.
you're all right.
Thank you, Joe. Here we go.
Oh,
That's my email, and that's my phone number.
great. Thank you.
You
And
know, I have a
I
quick
sure.
Bill, I have a quick question though, because one of the things I've looked at, with quantum, especially and getting it in a more widespread environment, is quantum sensors as a bridgeway into bringing quantum into something that, of course, has an enormous commercial value. What does everybody think about starting with something as, say, edge or origin level as quantum sensing as a segue into building the more
Yes.
robust quantum uh, capability? In other words, starting with sensors, build up
I've
from there,
actually
and then
done
go
quite a bit of
back into the
work
data
on
center.
quantum sensors, specifically nitrogen vacancies and diamond centers, which are quantum sensors that have the potential to be very, very accurate magnetometers,
Yes.
temperature sensors. Um, I think the real play there is to figure out how you build an array of them, such that I mean, a single vacancy in a diamond center is cool, but if you can actually build a device that only has one, you're going to spend months looking for it with very specialized hardware to find it. But I actually designed a handheld ODMR quantum sensor based on nitrogen vacancies. And it sounds like somebody I did this as a intern with the Womanian project,
Nice.
and looks like somebody's gonna start trying to build it soon.
Yeah.
Do you have a paper on that?
Yeah,
I
and even
didn't.
like I'm writing a book also on quantum sensing. So if anyone of you are like expert and if like I mean want to review
Okay.
or edit or provide the feedback, like I will be happy to loop you in. So this is the whole
What are the,
like
and I was gonna say, one of the areas that we looked at, very similar to what you're saying, is the Midwest Microelectronics Consortium, which was funded by the original Chips and Science Act. I think the idea, and this is something else along with the sensor capability, we're looking at potentially a computational memory strategy where memory takes on a lot more importance as a prelude to moving data, say, back to the data center and all that. But the idea is that the AI and ML is at a memory level, and that processing is at a memory level. It's something that that Bill was kind of talking about with the quantum sensor foundry. We're looking at faster ways of presenting the data that is more accurate and have more of a zero trust with a zero latency kind of a focus. Now, has anybody on the call worked in any areas dealing with advanced memory capability?
Quantum memory.
Yes, quantum.
You know, it's a bit of an oxymoron, but there are people who are. One entity is called the quantum loop. They've basically built devices where qubits in the form of photons can be pumped into a loop and then held there um, for longer than normal coherence times. But it's crazy to call it memory in the terms of what we think of digital memory. It's basically write once, read once memory. Um, but it has uses in quantum networking.
Yes, yes, it was a store and forward thing. You're right, but I think the memory is so important, especially again to the not just the encryption component, but actually the low latency and zero trust. I think we can do that at that level. We can save a tremendous amount of CPU power throughout the whole food chain. It's just my opinion. Thanks.
Well, another major breakthrough will be when quantum sensors are linked directly to the quantum computers. I don't know, there's probably no practical way to do that yet, but rather than measure, running your sensor and measuring it and then, shipping classical data around, what if you could just save the state of the sensor or teleport the state of the sensor to a quantum computer for processing?
That's a good point, though. I think that
Yeah,
the
it's
idea of
very unpractical at the moment, but
yeah, it is. But I think we got some DARPA stuff where they're looking at this. I wouldn't call it blue sky, but there's some technologies out there at a material level. You were talking about diamonds and things like that. You know where it's going, so it's going to get there sooner or later. Thanks.
There was someone on this group, I think on the last session, that talked about quantum memories. In fact, I even remember looking up a paper that was related to that. Is that person on this group, or does anybody remember what that was? Because it was a new term for me at the time.
Well, Bill, I think we were talking about quantum memory, but we were talking about what we call origin to memory superiority, which has both a classical and a quantum component, as part of a bridging capability between classical and quantum. But I'm not sure if that's the document you're talking about. Bill, what do you think?
Well, I appreciated Ron's comments on that topic, but you and I work together on a regular basis, so I trust your experience and background in this. So, Joe, this is the area that I'll follow your lead on.
Yeah, well, it's going to happen, and it's just like portable quantum memory. All these kind of things are going to be worked out. But the beauty is, I think the the communication capability that the Air Force Research Laboratory is working on with the two ion Q computers is going to be a bedrock for that. So we'll see how that goes. Okay.
Can you define what you mean by quantum memory? Because I literally just do not know what that means.
When you look at the massive amount of data that quantum could have and the layering and things like that, just think of how a sensor would work. You know, you got, say, an image, picture, or whatever. It brings in memory and I guess multiple layers. It's something like that. But from the standpoint of looking at how it could be stored, what I want with quantum memory is something like you would have in a message switching environment where it's briefly stored to a certain point and then moved on, so it can go, I guess, travel distances. But that's what I mean. Not memory necessarily in the fashion of a neural network or multiple layers and things like that, but who knows? It can't be. These are some of the things that we're just looking at. So I'm not 100% sure without talking to the quantum physics people like Dr. Keeper Sharkey, how exactly it would work. But these are some of the areas that I think DARPA's looking at. That and along with quantum sensors having a low energy signature, that kind of stuff. So it's things to look at, everybody. That's all.
Well, true
Is that
quantum memory has the problem of you run
is
up
that
against the no cloning theorem.
Yeah.
And that's why there is no real such thing. But there are these delay loops for qubits in the form of photons. But unless what you're talking about, I mean, I've seen papers on how either quantum computing or quantum theory has enhanced the performance of, you know, classical silicon based memory. In fact, there was a breakthrough in
Yes.
permanent memory just within the last 6 months, I want to say, which will probably put the flash drive people out of business if it ever comes to fruition. Very low energy stuff. Yeah. But and
can
there was
you
a claim that quantum mechanics were involved in the breakthrough or something, but yeah.
so can we imagine something like a register for quantum computing, similar to registers for quantum computing?
Yes, you can. In gate-based models, you can line up a bunch of qubits and call it a register. You can put them all into superposition and manipulate them and via entanglement and other types of gates, and
You got a good point
essentially
now.
build a register. Yeah.
See, that's the key thing about the register, because that's the fastest memory you're going to get anyway. But Ron, you hit it on something. That's kind of like what I'm talking about. If you get that kind of speed, I don't know the material or how it's going to necessarily work, but online with register type performance, like you're talking about, it's about as fast as you can get it, unless you come up with some other way of creating a better register environment. That's kind of like what I'm talking about. But I want memory to be able to do that. Now, I don't know exactly how from the standpoint of quantum mechanics, but it's just an area that we're exploring. And that's what Bill was talking about with this quantum environment, this sensor environment.
Yeah.
By the way, before I forget it, the one I can't remember what her name was, Jurgen, the one who stopped light.
Dr. Lenny, Lene Hau, Hau. She's from Copenhagen.
That was just a magnificent piece of work. It was very clever, and the way she was able to push it to the limit of already completely stopping it was just outstanding work, and seems like it would have relevance in some of the quantum issues for the idea that you can stop light in that fashion.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? She's still around. I think she's working out of Harvard these days. She was at Princeton for a while, but if you were an NFL guy, if you published, we're going to have Brett Favre or one of these other legendary quarterbacks come out and talk to us, imagine the effect that would have. So I think we ought to pay homage to these people and let them tell us what it was like 25 years ago when they accomplished these miracles. Guys, I'm going to join your group and come out on a regular basis. But I'm married to this wonderful Polish woman I've been married to for 25 years. And we have dates every night. So we're going to watch Saturday Night Live and watch Dave Chappelle tear it up on the stage on a rerun. So I'm going to have to bow out. I could actually stay here and talk to you another 2 hours because I love all my quantum brothers and sisters. But I just, this is my first attempt at coming out to meet you guys, and it's just been a blast.
Yep, brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
Enjoy the day.
Thank
Yeah,
you, everyone.
don't stop the conference because I'm leaving. Keep it going. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Yep. Thanks,
you.
William. Thanks.
The thing about this, we have people from every single time zone.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. I really appreciate it. It's my first time too. So yeah. And thank you, Shadab, and thank you everyone.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Terry,
Thanks,
William, yeah, Perry, Dave, for keeping this conversation interesting. I mean, I presented, but I learned a lot from each one of you, to be honest. So thanks for making this very interesting and insightful for me.
Thank you for all the information. I was not aware of those composite algorithms. That's just fascinating. I'm kind of like a time capsule. I'm going back to the original Shor algorithm. So that's a level of sophistication that I just haven't even seen it, and it's really fascinating. So that's good stuff, and I'm very curious to see the combinations. I want to look into some of that a little deeper. So thank you.
Yeah,
Yep,
and
I can share a lot of resources and links which I referred while creating the session. So there you will find more detailed analysis information, the which people or which research scientist or group have been working in which direction. So what I will do is I will compile the whole list of reference links which I used for preparing for this session, and maybe if anyone is interested, I mean, you can go through those links. Yep.
yeah, and please connect with us on LinkedIn, including if you want to help support Space Kids India International Mission. So someone mentioned military industrial complex. Both my parents worked for the U.S. military and got disabled, so I'm all about world peace. So thank you so much, everyone. I'm gonna hop off soon. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. Good day. Bye.
I'm heading out too. Thanks, everybody. A lot of